Caring too much about fitting in will kill your potential, harm your mental health, and make you miserable. If the people around you can't accept you for who you are, change the people around you. The world needs more people that are proud of exactly who they are. Tweeted by Stephen Bartlett. Hello everybody and welcome to Tuesday's episode of the Toya Talks podcast. I'm hoping the sound is really good because our environment has changed, and those of you who follow me on Instagram will know that I shared with my Instagram fam and the other platforms that I appear on social media that myself and my husband have actually built a house. We built a house outside London, and on Saturday we actually moved in. And I am absolutely shattered. I've never been as tired as I am today in my whole life. This has been a project that has been ongoing for over a year. And to have gotten to a point of completion, to have had all the meetings, to see all the drawings, all the renderings, all the calls, the FaceTimes, has come to a point where now we not only exchanged, we completed, and we moved in. And it is quite overwhelming, and I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. There is some imposter syndrome because the house is really big, and I do often look around and think, wow, like Kay and I built this. And it's what it represents as well. It represents growth, the breaking of generational curses, and the view that you can only build back home. Actually, if you think about it, we build here. We build our careers, we build ourselves, we build character. So why is it that we're not exposed to the possibility of building your own home? Now, don't get it twisted. I definitely feel as though Kay and I could have easily bought a house that was ready-made, and we saw several beautiful, beautiful homes. Obviously, we have a flat together, and for us, we needed space, and we wanted to tailor something to us, to ourselves and to our taste. And the experience has been absolutely amazing, working with a developer, an architect, a project manager, site manager, you name it, we worked with them. And we had amazing lawyers, amazing brokers. And I am going to be sharing a lot of kind of what happened, as much as possible anyway, on my YouTube channel called At Home with Toya. The link is in the summary description accompanying this podcast episode. And I will be, sharing some of the highs and the lows, the risks and the excitement. And I want to give a balanced view. I think for me, it's more about educating, people on what I have learned through the process and what the process looked like, and certain things that you have to consider, whether you're buying a house that's ready made or you're building a house. The concepts are still the same. It's not the first time for Kay and I to own. We have a flat here in I say here in London, but a flat in London. But it's our first time to own a house, and it's different. It feels different. It feels, I don't know, I feel quite surprised at how hard I have worked. I'm a hard worker, but I'm surprised how hard I've worked. And the reason I say that is you guys know what I was coming up against. Every single week for 2 years, I have been committed to this podcast. I've shared my highs and lows in my career, and yet I was building a house. I was building behind the scenes. I was going through the highs and lows. I was having the late nights, and I still showed up. And sometimes there were times when I thought, is this actually worth it? Like, this is just too much. But it is worth it. Your dreams, your ambitions, your hard work is always worth it. And the most important thing is that we show up for ourselves. And I showed up for myself. I showed up for all the things that were important to me. And there are certain things that have suffered. And I think that's testament to the fact that, not everything can be operating at an optimal level at the same time. There were so many things that I had in the works for Toya Talks. Remember, I had COVID in December as well. So everything has been delayed, everything. And I think it's testament to the fact that I'm human. And with all the best will in the world, sometimes you are going to drop the ball, and it's about how you recover when you drop the ball. There are so many things, there's so much content I need to put out for Toya Talks. I want to put out for Toya Talks that are delayed. And as I have always said on social media, and I'm saying on the podcast, please give me grace as I give myself grace. Please give me grace as I give myself grace. No one's going to be harder on me than me. No one. Because I know what I expect from myself. But through this house building process, through this growth in character process, through knowledge and understanding, I've realised that I don't give myself enough grace because I use my busyness to patch or to create a patch on a lot of the pain and upset that I have deep down inside. You know, I've shared my difficult relationship with my mum. I shared a podcast episode on that. And it was a part 1 because there is going to be a part 2 when I'm emotionally and mentally ready to do that. But it's, you know, when you lose a parent, I lost my father a couple of years ago, every milestone is laced with a little bit of sadness because the one person who was your loudest and greatest cheerleader, you don't get to share that milestone with. And the people that are alive and well by the grace of God are not happy for you because it's not centered on what they can control. People genuinely not happy for you because you didn't seek permission from them to be able to live, because you are not allowing yourself to be controlled by other people. It's very difficult then sometimes to find the joy in what it is you're celebrating when people who should be happy for you aren't. But God's so kind. I am surrounded by many, many amazing people who genuinely love me, genuinely love Kay, who celebrate us. And you guys are one of those people. You know, the emails I get, the messages I get, you know, people sharing how they've benefited from the platform feeds my soul, because all of you are my why. Even in this state of complete tiredness, I've got the shakes, you know, I'm absolutely exhausted. I'm always going to show up for you guys because I show up for myself. So I have to show up for everything and anything that I care about. And I'm so happy that I'm able to record this podcast today. Hopefully the sound is very nice, and I think it is. I've set up my desk area of just where I work and everything. I also have a room that is a creative space for me as well, the option to use that as well. And I'm just going to spend the next few months of this year, I say few months, but the next months of this year, just creating and putting out groundbreaking, life-changing content to my fellow Black queens, because it's no less than we deserve. We deserve the best. So that's what I'm going to be producing. So thank you so much. You know, I will keep saying this, and I'll continue to give homage to the ancestors, because whenever I plan an episode, the ancestors will direct me to how to deliver this episode, or what is happening in the world will feed into the episode, and God will always equip me to be able to deliver. And that's why I always say to you guys, those who have ears, let them receive the message of this podcast episode, because I also recognize that maybe certain episodes aren't for everybody, but learning and growth should be for all of us. So sometimes you just pick the lessons and pick the growth and pick the knowledge where you can. And if anything doesn't pertain to you, maybe you just need to park it for now and revisit it later. I say this because Will Smith won his first Oscar. And I just need us to deep that for a minute. This is a man who we have basically grown up watching. And if some of you haven't, I have. From Fresh Prince of Bel-Air days. That was when we didn't see a lot of us or people who looked like us on TV. And Fresh Prince provided escapism. Now, we've seen all the documentaries on Netflix about what happened behind the scenes, etc., etc., etc. But when we take a step back and look at Will Smith's career holistically, what we appreciate, or should appreciate, is this is a Black man who has worked hard and grafted in his career, provided us with entertainment, with good quality acting. He has starred in various films, and one of my favourite films from Will Smith is The Pursuit of Happiness. I don't think I could ever forget how impactful that film was. And he's been in many films. The recent film that he starred in, King Richard, where he plays the father of Venus and Serena Williams. I mean, come on. His acting has transcended across several generations. So Will Smith is and should be respected as a household name. Whether you like him or not, you know what he's put out. So to be at this stage of his career collecting an Oscar, I think we need to deep it. This is a black man collecting his very first Oscar. You and I both know, really, this should be his third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh Oscar here. After all, Leonardo DiCaprio, how many Oscars does he have? So I think we need to deep that. Now, I don't watch the Oscars. I've got to be honest with you. I prefer the highlights that social media provide. But what is dominating the Oscars, well, as we have all seen, is the dirty slap. Yeah? Dirty. Do you know what Bakadom is? Bossa. Miss Bossa. He slapped the piss out of Chris Rock. He slapped the piss out of him. And I'm going to just go on record to say this because I know sensitive Sallys are here. Yeah? Concerned Casanovas, they're here. I don't advocate violence. I'm not a violent person. Therefore, I don't advocate violence. But you know what I do advocate? I advocate for boundary setting. I advocate for respecting people's boundaries. The last few episodes I've spoken about my boundaries, so I advocate for that. You see, I want us to break down what happened during that Oscars very briefly, because I don't think we need to go too far. Will Smith hasn't had the best year and a half. He hasn't. And this is not a justification, this is context. And to his acceptance speech, he has been ridiculed. He has been disrespected. He has been treated poorly and been expected to accept it. And he has been accepting it. I think that's what we can agree. But where you cross a line is where you rid somebody of their dignity for a cheap joke. For a cheap joke. I have to be honest. I'm deeply ashamed and disappointed by Chris Rock. Because I don't know if that one is jealousy or devil visited him in the night. But he sought to rob Will Smith of the greatest, one of maybe, the greatest nights of his life. And as a black man that Chris Rock is, I have a higher expectation of him because they're in the same field. So he knows and appreciates the magnitude of what the Oscars is and must appreciate and acknowledge the career that Will Smith has had to get to that point, because Chris Rock would have known that Will Smith was getting an Oscar. Let's not play games. He knew. So why would you seek to ridicule this man by taking a piss out of his wife? Now, I've read somewhere, Chris Rock didn't know that Jada Pinkett Smith had a condition and therefore he was just using the joke as a comedic something. Boundaries. But you know the most poignant thing that Will Smith said is what I've been saying here and preaching here for the last year of this podcast. Many of you sent me a message on DMs to say, Toya, you say this all the time. Denzel Washington had approached Will Smith a few minutes before he accepted the Oscar and said to him, friend, brother, be careful. When something great is about to happen in someone's life, the devil, and this is not verbatim, but the devil will always seek to rob you of your joy. Do I not tell you guys this all the time? Do I not? Have there not been examples on this podcast where I have shared my own personal experience and how one can be in the full throes of greatness and the devil will always come in because the devil's trying to claim the glory. He's trying to cover you in shame. He does not want you. The devil does not want you to bask in the fruits of honey and joy. No. So you have to be consciously aware. Little did Will Smith know that that brief conversation with Denzel Washington, a fellow actor, producer, a fellow king, was prophesying onto Will Smith's life. Because what is the likelihood that in an Oscars, Will Smith will mount a stage and slap the piss out of the host, who happened to be, on this occasion, Chris Rock? Denzel Washington prophesied. That was like a revelation. See how God loves Will Smith so much? He would even give him warning. How many of us are in the throes of our greatness and the devil has tried to rob us and win? How many? How many episodes have I come on here and I've said to a lot of you, be careful. When I say move in silence, I'm not saying don't tell anybody anything ever. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying do your due diligence and be careful of the spirits that are around you. Be careful in protecting your peace and protecting your abundance of joy. After all, over the last year, I've been building a house. No one knew, apart from the people who are extremely close to me. There's 2 people who are extremely close. When we got to a certain stage of the house build, then we started to tell 1 or 2 people. We had to be careful. Are you guys forgetting a few episodes ago I told you guys? Somebody I considered a friend, I went to her wedding. I flew from here with my best friend. I flew from here, UK, London town, to Morocco to celebrate her wedding because none of her friends were traveling. They were saying, oh, this was literally at the very early stages of COVID before we knew it was COVID. Her friends were dropping like flies. I said to myself, no, let me go and support my friend. Not like this friend that I've known them for years and years and years. I've known them for a few years. Get on very well. I really respected this friend. Because if I'm willing to put money behind going on holiday, you better know that if I'm coming to celebrate your wedding, I must hold you in some form of regard. Then after coming to your wedding, you have your baby, I celebrate, we pray, we laugh, we joke. You follow me on social media religiously. No problem. Anything I'm celebrating, you will be watching voyeur. No message of congratulations, nothing. And that's fine because do you know something? Congratulations doesn't keep me fed. So if you don't want to, that's okay. But it's not to say I haven't noticed it. Then a year of house building, a year of content creation, a year of holding down a tough contract. You guys know what I went through in my last contract. Let's be real. We have used them as examples for content of this podcast. I mind my business, you know. I don't go looking for people's trouble because they're not equipped to handle my own. So I mind my business. I am the most unproblematic friend and person because I don't want your wala. I don't. I'm facing my front because I've got a lot on my plate. You know, my plate is so full. I don't even know the color of the plate that I'm eating from because it's full. Then out of the blue, a few weeks ago, you send me a text message to say to me, hi, how are you? I hope you're well. I had a dream about you. Come and hear the devil. Come and hear the devil. I had a dream about you that you was on holiday. And so? And then you went on a boat and then you got lost at sea. This is the violence this person met me with before 9 a.m. on a weekday. I literally was sitting at my desk. I had entered the password to enter my computer, knowing that the violence that I see in this white-dominated space every day, to then be greeted on my personal phone by the devil. I knew deep inside that greatness is about to happen. And little did this quote-unquote friend know, I'm in the middle of a house build that has been delayed 3 times. 3 times. Remember, I'm building a house during COVID. I'm using a large proportion of my savings, as is my husband, to build this house. We are walking in the wilderness. I've never built a house before. I own a flat. I've owned properties before, but never a house. So I'm learning. I've come off of how many FaceTime calls the architect is walking around. This person is walking around. They'll be using this house jargon. These abbreviations that don't make sense. Me, I'm dyslexic. So if you start doing this abbreviation now, my head will be fire. But you had to learn. I had to learn on the job. That was on the job training. Then this so-called friend, rather than how are you, when you're having this type of dream, there's some dream that you pray after and you don't reveal, but you weren't having a dream. What that was, it was a cry for attention because you're bitter. You are a bitter person. You're seeing me living my life, good, rightly or wrongly, on socials, and you decided that you wanted to rain on my parade. You wanted to pull your trousers down and piss all over me. That was the devil. When something great is about to happen in your life, there will be a test to enable the testimony. My question is, how much of your hand is in that test? Can you imagine if I was now opening my mouth? Hi guys, my husband and I just bought a plot. We plan to build our house. Can you imagine all the devils circulating? They're circulating already. I haven't said anything to anybody. Talk less of the one now that I open my mouth to say. Will Smith was at the Oscars. Deep it. A sea of Oyibo people. They created this. Oscars. And Will Smith, for the first time in his career, is about to reap the fruits of his labor. He's been reaping, but he's reaping this one too. He sowed the seed. Then Chris Rock allowed the devil to dwell inside him when he was opening his mouth. Because I want you to explain to me, what person would ever be okay with this type of a cheap joke? You don't know what people are going through in their house. There was that actor, I can't remember his name, God rest his soul, Chadwick Boseman. Fantastic actor. A blessed king. He passed away. I believe he had cancer. You don't know what people are going through. The media ripped him a new one. Social media ripped Mr. Boseman a new one to now find out that he was battling for his life. He was battling cancer. People were allowing the devil to use them. They were abusing him. Why is he so skinny? Why this? Why this? Only to find this out. You don't know what people are going through in their lives. So you have to take time when you're opening your mouth. Take time. You don't know what people are going through in their life. You can't use people as a cheap joke to further your own career, because if you step on them, eventually somebody will step on you. And it may not even be the person you're stepping on, but karma will come and find you and step on you. But for this learning lesson, Will Smith mounted the stage. I didn't understand what was happening, you know. It's like he was doing one Kanye West and Taylor Swift something. And he did bossa. He said, "Not today, Satan." That's what Will Smith said. Not today, Satan. I want you, if you haven't already, to go and re-listen to Will Smith's acceptance speech after this episode. Those tears are real tears. Those tears are fear. Those tears are pain. Let's really be real. The humiliation that Will Smith has suffered because of this situationship that was in the media couldn't have been easy on him or his marriage. He's actually a human being at the end of the day. Let's stop immortalizing him. He's a human being. You can't treat people like that and use people as cheap joke and forget the boundaries. Chris Rock attempted to steal Will Smith's moment. It doesn't matter how much you look at it, because no one's talking about the Oscar win of Will Smith. No one's talking about what work Will Smith has had to sow to be able to reap this. They're only going to remember the slap. And this is why I say to you guys all the time, in situations at work, no one's going to remember that this boss has been disrespectful. No one's going to remember this line manager has done this. They're going to remember your reaction. And this is the reason why I always have spoken about setting workplace boundaries, understanding your objective and your why in the workplace, securing your objective and knowing when it's time to move on, not overstaying your welcome in an organization. Because once you've achieved what you've set out to achieve, there has to be that boundary you even set yourself in knowing when it's time for pastures new, for growth, for learning. Chris Rock got clarted. And will he learn from this? I don't know. I read somewhere, and the thing is, I haven't actually gone into social media to see how people have reacted and stuff. I literally spent maybe 5 minutes today because I'm just so exhausted. But there was something that I read, and it said, Who should apologise to who? And I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's past the stage of apology. I think Chris Rock needs to make an announcement of some press conference and just acknowledge his role. And if Will Smith wants to render an apology, that's up to him. But I don't actually think it's owed. Do we agree and support the violence? No. But do we support the message? On my side, the answer is yes. You see, the devil operates in different ways. There's not always going to be a situation such as the one that, happened at the Oscars with Chris Rock and Will Smith. In our workplaces, it masquerades as people in life situations that often catch us off guard. Let me give you an example. There's, in my old contract, my old workplace, there was a lady called Nara. And Nara had only been there a few weeks, but sometimes it's difficult with white women. I find because of their powerful white tears. Anytime they want to tap into it, you could be talking about the sky being blue and they start crying, and already you're getting nervous because you're thinking, is it your fault the sky is blue? If somebody joins this call now, will they blame you for this woman's tears? She's she's very emotive. She'll be on calls and she'll just be loud. Why are you loud at 8 o'clock in the morning? Why? Why are you loud? Why are you shouting like this? My volume will be low and I can still hear you from downstairs. You're shouting, ga, 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 ga. What's all that? And it's like she just wanted to make her presence known. You have people like that. Somebody will be answering a question. You who have been in the team for 5 seconds will now be giving us your unsolicited, smelly opinion. That's Nara. Now, one of the suppliers I was managing for one of my projects, Nara was managing for a different project, but it just happened to be the same supplier. Every so often, this woman will be harassing me, pestering me, sending me IM. Can I talk to you? Can I talk to you? And one day I had to say, excuse me, our contracts are not the same. They're not the same. And you're talking to me and asking me questions, you're interviewing me, but the advice that I give you, you will go to another colleague and ask them the same question and get the advice. So I'm not understanding why you're trying to waste my time. Yeah, she would do that a lot. It's like she was fact checking. Mind you, I've been managing multi-million-pound contracts. You're coming to fact check. What's all that? But I know why. Because it's a black woman that's telling you the information, so you need to check it. Because you're not checking it from the other person who's non-black that you go to, who's been in the team for 0.5 seconds. Anyway, I digress. So, obviously, I left the project and everything. I'm still begging them to come and collect their IT equipment. Nobody wants to come and collect their IT equipment. If I ever get one type of email from them, I have to drag them. Come and get your IT. I want it out of my house. The fact I had to move to my new house with their IT was even pissing me off. But did you know that when I left, maybe a week after I left, Nara was saying to people, ooh, I was looking at the filing, and listen, I was looking at the filing. Why are you looking through my filing system for? Our contracts are completely different. What are you doing there? Eggs up, eggs up. The loudest person, the empty vessel making the loudest noise. No problem. She said, oh, I was looking to Toya's play. I can't find certain things. It's like she hasn't done the filing and she's left now. Little did Nara know that the people she's saying this to in the team meeting, a few of them were on the project and were working in my team before I left. So one of them sent me a message. She said, Toya, just to let you know that Nara said this. And obviously, no, I'm not going through your filing. I just want to give you the heads up in case there's something that you should have filed when you didn't. I said, there's nothing. I filed it. I said to myself, why are people like this? You wait until the person's left to cast aspersions. And I know part of it is because it was coming up to contract renewal, isn't it? So this one had to make her voice present to seem like she's doing something. But you can't use people to step on and think you're going to excel or go further in life. It's not going to happen. Yeah, she was waiting for them to extend her contract. Mind you, they tried to get me to stay several times. They extended my contract. I wasn't interested. I left, right? And I've never had to step on anybody in my career to grow or anything. It's just never happened, and I never would. Do you think they extended her contract? No. You do realise they emailed her, Nara, to advise her they're not extending her contract. You see, When you allow the devil to use you, when you sell your soul to the devil, you're not going to reap anything great. It's just temporary joy, temporary success. Don't last long. They didn't renew her contract. So all that she was talking, was it worth it? They don't even value you enough to renew your contract, because that's what it is. It's not about budget at this point. They have the budget. The fact that I haven't renewed my contract means there was budget in the pot. They just wasn't willing to use it for you. When something great is about to happen in someone's life, Satan will always show up through people, through situations, and you as a person, because I see it for myself, I have to acknowledge when that's happening. So I can speak protection and positivity into my life. I can draw on the ancestors to come and cover me. So when I see these things, I have to say it. And sometimes God will use angels like Denzel Washington to warn you. And you have a duty to pay attention. Pay attention. I think that Will Smith, I don't know whether he paid attention to what Denzel said to him or fully appreciated the magnitude of what Denzel was saying to him. I think he had to go through that situation with Chris Rock to really understand and appreciate the situation that he now has found himself in. But I feel like Will Smith has always known his greatness, but whether he has understood how the devil will be used, I don't know. But I also want to share something with you before we move on to the dilemmas, because this isn't in fact a dilemma episode. So you guys recall me telling you that this mad contract that I've just come off, I was actually consulting also for another company. And that company I was consulting for, you know, it was Monday to Friday too, but it wasn't as labor intensive. And to be fair, it was mainly 2 days a week I was doing there, but they'll pay me a day rate for Monday to Friday. And I was always on call to them because there were certain projects they were working on and they needed that commercial contract advice, you know, on how to do things. It was quite a young team. They were dealing with, you know, projects in the millions, and they just needed like a subject matter expert, right? So it was a gig. How I balanced it with this mad contract that I've just come off, I really don't know. It's the love of God. But I feel like when you're determined and there are certain things that you're trying to achieve, you make things happen. I overworked. You know, this is the hardest I've ever worked in my life. Over the last 2 years has been the hardest I've ever worked in my life. And I've worked hard, but this is different. This feels like just a lot. Anyway, so as I was working there as a consultant, they hired a perm member of staff to work on, like head director of commercial. And remember, I'd already been there just over a year consulting for them. So whenever somebody new comes into an organization, I've mentioned this before, they have to try and put their stamp on things. So some people are like raging bulls in a china shop, yeah? Other people are quite smart about how they navigate because they want to know the state of play to understand then how to assert themselves and make a name for themselves, especially at that director level. There are two types of people that will come into organizations and they will operate accordingly. So there was a lady that joined as director of like commercial whatever, and we're gonna call her Florence. And I was never introduced to Florence or anything. I was just told she existed because she opted for the raging bull in a china shop. Now, a lot of the projects and the way this company is set up is that it has to go through stage gates, and it never had to go through like a commercial director stage gate because they had a commercial person already. And I am a commercial contract manager. So they had a commercial person and a commercial contract manager. And that commercial person is more procurement based and I'm more contract based, hence the titles. So as normal, I was approached about something. I gave my recommendation via email. Remember, I've never met Florence. I don't know her. Bearing in mind that this particular project is quite specific, so they contracted my services because I'm a subject matter expert. Okay. So can you imagine my astonishment then? I'm doing really well. They really enjoy me. They've renewed my contract twice already. Twice already? When they're renewing your contract like that, that's how you know you're doing a good job, because it's not often they'll come and tell you you're doing a good job. And the person who is the project sponsor signs and approves my invoices. And she is the one basically putting her name to that particular project. Remember, I'm balancing this and my other contract that is mad. Florence then sends an email saying, and this is after I've done a recommendation and everything, and she's being sent an email saying this is what's happened to the. She then says, based on the information, dear Catherine, so that's my boss. Based on the information provided below, I am content to approve. Contract signature is just the start and robust contract management needs to be in place. So she's talking about me. Toya, have you completed the Contract Management Foundation and Beyond Foundation training? If not, please complete them ASAP. It would also be good to see the contract management plan for managing the overall contract. Please invite me to the strategic meetings. Finally, I attach the outcome of an independent review. Isn't that what I do? Kind regards, Florence. This email was sent to every single person in the department. Florence included. So when the recommendation was sent to her, it was only those pertinent to the project. In her attempt to assert herself through the means of humiliation, she decided to email everybody in the department this. So you're now telling me, a contractor, that I need to go and do the foundation course. And I'm going to explain to you what happened. Everybody on this project had been saying, Toya this, Toya that, Toya that. Because they've never had robust advice and advisory service like I've been giving them. So Florence, knew about me because this project for them is high visibility. Remember, I'm a contractor. So I don't come here, I'm not coming to do your training. But what happened is, when she's being told, Toya's doing this, oh, this project, this, she came in, she hadn't even been in the position 1 week. There was one meeting she was in, she looked like she's been chewing a rock. So she's already seen me, never introduced herself, nothing, she was just there. No problem, I don't really care. As long as my invoices get paid and I deliver what the service that they've asked for, I don't care. I'm not here to do the politics, I'm not interested. If she was concerned about my ability to do my job, do you think that's the forum to do it? See how the devil is she's allowing the devil to use her. I'm shining, I'm doing my job, everybody's happy, second contract renewal. And what you are trying to do is humiliate me for your own amusement. That's not going to happen. So I replied all, yeah. Because the audience in which you're seeking to shame me is the audience that I have to respond. Because I have to set the boundary so everybody else understands. Don't ever come at me like that. Let me read it to you. Hi, Florence. This email that you have sent today is completely and utterly unacceptable. The unprofessionalism within this email is loud. And I'm going to ask you very clearly, in front of the audience you seek to humiliate me in, to refrain from the constant microaggressions. If you have an issue on my advisory service, on my commercial contract advice, on the advice I've been providing this company, then it is for you to speak to and raise this with the project sponsor. I'm going to ask you to take the professional approach and take it away from this audience and opt to take a sensible approach moving forward when it comes to me. I am going to give you the opportunity to rectify this. Kind regards. You want to choose violence. You want to choose violence because you're trying to assert yourself. You want to do a Chris Rock. You want to assert yourself for cheap, cheap recognition or some type of superiority. Bullshit. You're not going to do it with me. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever. This email that I sent is short, sharp, shock. What I'm saying to her is, You want to run with the big boys. You want to run kitty kitty. I will run kete kete if you want to run kitty kitty. Don't do that with me. I am never the one. I don't look for your problem. But if you look for mine, you're always going to find it. I'm always going to advocate for myself because it's too easy for white women or non-black people to attempt to chip away at us. I'm very conscious that I am the only black woman on this project. I'm the only one. Bearing in mind, I'm balancing this with my other contract. So there's violence here, there's violence here. I want you to tell me what justification anybody has to send this type of email that she sent to me. None. Whether you know me or not, none. There's ways of doing it. If you're upset, you're concerned, or maybe you just don't understand because you've been there a week, there's ways. When that recommendation was sent, there was 4 people on copy. When she sent her email, basically saying, what are your credentials? She sent it to over 25 people. So she didn't give a shit. Bull in a china shop. You will smash all the ornaments, all of them, and you will find super glue to put it all back together because I'm not the one. Then she replied to me. She took everybody out and then she rejoined those 4 people. Hi Toya, I'm really sorry. I really did not mean to be aggressive. Listen, bull in a china shop. So we have an admission here. I never used the word aggressive. I said microaggressions. I didn't say aggressive. But since you've decided to diagnose yourself with this aggression, no problem. I have reread the email and considered our interaction because we've had none. We've had none. Please accept my apologies. It was certainly not my intention. Yes, it was. You just didn't think that I was the black woman that was going to stand up to you. I did not mean to question your professionalism, and indeed, I've been very impressed with your abilities so far. So if you've been impressed with my abilities, why would you ask me if I've done a foundation training course? Am I your employees though? Do you manage me though? And even if this is a woman that hasn't even taken the time to understand my credentials, I am keen for us to work together in a supportive and constructive manner. Do you have time for a quick chat later? I am on leave after 4 p.m. and I would very much like to speak to you before I go. No, you're not going to have it on your terms. I responded to her. Hi, Florence. Please find my CV attached. For the avoidance of doubt, I have worked for the best of the best, namely Goldman Sachs, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Inmarsat Global, Capita, to name a few. However, please see a full extensive list of the places I've worked, what I have delivered, and my academic credentials. I am educated to master's level in law, having done a law degree, having gone to law school and a master's, passing with a distinction. I have also done level 4 procurement in SIPS, passing with a distinction. So if this is about my credentials, in which you sought to question by suggesting I do a foundation course, I think you can see how this has not just been humiliating, but uncalled for. You have identified behavior traits in your emails. However, I'm not in a position to have a conversation about you at a time that's convenient for you. What I would rather is for you to learn the lessons and to move forward in a professional manner. There is no conversation that is required here other than for you to refrain from your behavior. Kind regards. Whenever greatness is about to happen in someone's life, the devil will always try you. If I had allowed this woman to take me where she wanted me to go, she would have destabilized that form of my income stream, because I would have told her, I would have just lost my temper, told her to piss off. That's an income stream at the end of the day. Sometimes it's about manner of approach and how you deal with things. And this is where I would say slapping Chris Rock on the face, it depends on the situation. I can't critique the act. I can just say I don't agree with violence. But sometimes it's also about how we render that violence. I will render the violence using the Queen's English and grammar. Grammar. Can you see why it's important to know your stuff? So this woman has been impressed by my work and everything, but there's nothing in her emails that would say that. Nothing. What her emails say is, you're not good enough. Florence's email basically says you are not good enough. Otherwise, why would you suggest a foundation course? And there's nothing wrong with a foundation course if you took the time to understand my foundation. If you took the time to look at my CV. If you took the time to have a conversation with me, even if you didn't want to have a conversation, go and get my CV before you decide what I need and not need. Moreover, I am not your employee. I'm a contractor, and even if I was your employee, you couldn't. Listen. These people, they know what they're doing. And I feel like there's certain people that are susceptible to be used by the devil. And all we can control is how we as individuals, as black women, how we respond. I've always said it and I'm going to say it again. No non-black person will ever use my emotions as a tool to weaponize against me. I'm never going to talk to white people about race. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. There's so many books. It was a white man that created Google. Go and Google. That's not my job. I'm not going to allow non-black people to frustrate me out of my queendom. Frustrate me out of my crown. You're not going to do it. We work hard as black women because we navigate daily the treacherous waters of the workplace. We navigate daily the daily violence, the daily microaggressions, the daily macroaggressions, the daily. And the devil will always try you. Because at the height of this email, there was already a delay on my house build. I knew greatness was coming. I knew it. Because it just felt like one thing after another. And the thing is, it will come from nowhere or appear to come from nowhere. Dear black women, let me be clear to you. They see our greatness like a seal written on our forehead. Look at her confession here. Her confession here, after she got dragged for her violence. Can you see her confession here? Florence confessed. I've been very impressed. Why didn't you say anything then? Why have you kept it like it's a dirty secret? Let us as black women learn from certain situations. Allow our ears to be open and our hearts to be open to receive. Because you see, as black women, if we do not pattern up, they'll be using us like fried rice. Will Smith will recover from this because he's a man at the end of the day. Because if it was a woman, can you imagine if it was a black woman that did that to a white woman, slapped her? Hey, the feminist groups, they will be out. They'll be out. But this is what I'm saying. Black men also, they have a privilege as well. That proximity to masculinity. They have a privilege that as black women we're never going to have. So we know that what has happened will only catapult Will Smith's career further in a way that it wouldn't for a black woman. And that is on period. The only disappointment is like two black men. Do you understand? That's my disappointment. I'm very disappointed in Chris Rock. I'm disappointed. But I'm not going to criticize Will Smith's response. Because I don't feel that I am in a place to do that. Because unless, short of sitting down and asking him what led you to that, I just know that I don't agree with violence. But sometimes, if they don't hear, they have to feel sometimes. That's how it goes. We just thank God for education and growth and maturity. Because I'm from the streets, and I'm joking. Am I there? Whew. Wow. Now listen, let us go to some dilemmas because this was and is a dilemma episode. But what I'm going to say, as I always say, those who have ears, let them hear. And I hope that you receive the messaging of this podcast episode. It's important. It's imperative that we take the learning lessons from what we see in our daily lives. What has happened with Will Smith and Chris Rock and the Oscars, how it simultaneously ties together is critical. It's critical. And how we deal with the devil trying to rob us of the glory of our greatness is important. We have to be consciously aware. We're spiritual beings. You guys know I'm very spiritual. We're spiritual beings. So it's important for us to understand how our greatness is manifesting. Before the testimony becomes the test in testimony, we've spoken about this before. So let me start with a dilemma that I received recently. And there's no subject, the subject is just called dilemma. Hi Toya, I hope you're doing well. Congratulations on the new house and all that you continue to achieve. You really are such an inspiration. This is not strictly a career-related dilemma, but I would appreciate your insight on how you would navigate this. I am 25 and my current boyfriend is 28. We have been together for a year and a few months. He is an amazing guy who loves me, but I have some concerns. I believe I am a very career-orientated person, and I have set goals on how I want to achieve these targets. I actively take steps to build myself to create the career and future I want. However, I do not see that same drive from my boyfriend. I currently make more money than him, and I have no issue stepping in and providing additional support where necessary. But I do not want this to be our long-term dynamic. I want him to be able to hold his weight and be able to support me, especially if we get married and have kids. I have raised these concerns with him and even worked on his CV. I'm constantly sending him jobs to apply to, and I also shared with him your podcast, but he is just not interested. He just complains about his current situation, i.e. how he hates his job and how badly he's paid, but isn't taking steps to change his situation. He is a good guy and he treats me well, but I don't know how else to push him to aspire to more. Or should I just be patient and hope he finds his own motivation? Thank you so much. Wow, that's a big one. I feel like that's a podcast episode on its own. Soon come. One thing I'm always going to say, and I've always said, is you can't want more for people than they want for themselves. Another thing I'm going to say is this. You can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Another thing I'm going to say is, like you, fellow Black Queen, I'm a very ambitious woman. I work really, really hard. But there's different forms of ambition. There are those who are extremely passionate and go hell for leather. There are those who are passionate and are just seeing how it goes and taking their time and trying to find themselves completely fine. And there are people who just coast. And there are people who just complain about their circumstance but make no effort to change it and are comfortable to just complain. And comfortable because change means fear, and fear means potentially the F word. You know, I don't like the F word, failure. For me, what was important for me in a relationship when I was dating was finding somebody who I can learn from. That was really important to me because there's an acceptance that, number one, I don't know everything. And number two, I like the idea of looking up to someone. And when I met Kay had his career, he was in a different country, he was living his life. And Kay comes with a wisdom and a maturity that I know that I needed for myself. And this is the reason why when I did the Toy Talks Live in 2018, Kay didn't understand the vision of Toy Talks. He didn't get it. He didn't. At the end of Toy Talks, he got it. But it didn't stop him from being supportive. Those of you who are at the Toy Talks Live in 2018 will testify of somebody who was going up and down, talking to the sound person, running up and down, giving someone the mic, doing this, coming in the back. That was Kay. That was Kay. So Kay feeds into my aspirations, my dreams, and is my support system. Even today, he said, Toya, you know, you still need to record. I know you're tired. It's been a lot with the house move. And I said, don't worry, Kay, I'm definitely going to deliver. That encouragement. I've been in a ratty mood, but it hasn't stopped Kay from making sure that he's supporting me in what I'm doing. Equally, in relationships, it's about respect. Before Kay and I got married, because remember, Kay and I got married last year, July, and we haven't been married for long. We was in a relationship for about, I'd say, 4 years. About 4 years before we got married. And during those 4 years, it was an opportunity for us to see our compatibility. It's not just compatible in sex, because everybody wants sex. Sex is not the only compatibility criteria. If you're looking for a life partner, then it's more than that. It's about, are we able to support each other in our ambitions and our desires? Kay is very motivated. He's very inspired, and he works really hard, and he has other ambitions. But there is something that is very spiritual about ambition, and I'll tell you what it is. A man that's willing to work hard and show up and have ambition, be motivated, and shows up for himself, will show up for you, will show up for his marriage, and will show up for his family. If you want to know the core of a man, see how he operates in his life outside of you. It's not about whether they're a good or a bad person. It's about how they show up in life. Because let me tell you something. There's going to be more lows than there are highs. They are. That's a fact. There are going to be more lows. And I'll tell you why. Because the highs are going to be as such that they're going to be so sweet. But remember, when something great is about to happen in your life, the devil will always try. So the devil will be trying all the time, especially when you are destined for greatness. Do you understand the logic? One thing that comes across in this email is your boyfriend is a lovely person. He looks after you. He takes care of you. But you have done what you can do. You've looked at his CV. You're sending him jobs. You've sent him the podcast. You're sending information. But unless he is ready to receive it, darling, you're going to just be sending that. It's like sending something into a black hole. And that's the truth. Before people get married, they need to spend time getting to know the person on many different levels. Because marriage is not a joke. It's not beans. It's not beans. Yeah? Even the test before marriage is not a joke. Talk about the test within a marriage. So when we're getting to know each other and we're dating, I need to understand the fiber of who you are. Because for me personally, understanding the clarity of my greatness came from my support system, and Kay is my support system. It came from his encouragement. But how can somebody encourage you when themselves they're not where they are to encourage themselves? I think that you need to use the next year or two as an opportunity to fully think about how you and him can operate in a marriage if that's something you want to do. Remember, you're 25 years old. You're 25, and I say that to say that there's no rush. And this is the thing, isn't it? Society, we're always in a rush, but there's no rush. In fact, you are at a beautiful time in your life where you get to ask these questions. And I love the fact that you've been so honest about this question that you've asked me. This is called fact-finding of life. Fact-finding. Just because somebody treats you well doesn't mean they're good for you, darling. Just because somebody's a good person doesn't mean they're good for you. You can still have somebody who is great, who's a great person, who does all the things in a relationship but are not good for you. And the question is that I would have to ask you is, what do you want? What are you looking for in this dilemma, in this man? What are you looking for? How does what you're looking for feed into your long-term goals as a couple? Have you had that discussion? Have you had the discussion about this dilemma that you're talking to me about? How old is he? Because that's not what we have here. I don't know. Oh, sorry, you said he's 28. Sorry, 28. Maybe he's walking in the wilderness and trying to find himself. And the question is, where do you draw the line between finding yourself and allowing the person that you're seeing to find themselves versus you elevating and you growing? You know, one thing about relationships is it's give and take. It's not always going to be highs. It's not always going to be lows. But it's about growth. And I think people forget that, the importance of growth. You should be growing positively together. And if that's not happening, then that means you're staying stagnant. you need to have a conversation with him. And as a result of that conversation, you need to take a step back and you need to then think about your future and you need to observe him. And then you're going to have certain questions that you're going to have to be confronted with and certain decisions you're going to have to make if there are no changes. Because what you don't want to do, darling, is get to your 30s. You're still in the same relationship. You're still in the same situation. But what has happened is you've had to compromise yourself to be able to truly enjoy this relationship. And that's not enjoyment if you fully have... If a relationship is as such that changes you completely to a point where you become like him in terms of his unambition to certain things. Because what people don't also appreciate is how couples influence each other. Because what will happen is you, as much as you think, you know, that you're very independent, if when you're in a relationship for long periods of time, you become also influenced by each other. I'm influenced by Kay a lot. He's influenced by me a lot because we spend a lot of time together. And you're going to take on that negativity and it will affect you. So I think that you have a lot of questions that you need to answer through discussion with him, through your due diligence and through observation. And the fact that he is a good man and he treats you well tells me that there is an opportunity here for him to really take on what you're saying, because what you're basically saying is, I need you to meet me where I am in order for us to grow. And if you're not willing to meet me where I am in order for us to grow, that means we're going to stand where we are. And what will happen is, and I've been in a relationship like this, where you fly and this person then ends up resenting you because you represent to them what they haven't done for themselves. And it won't work. So I hope that I have given you some guidance here. I hope that you're able to receive the message that I've been able to provide. And I hope that gives you some comfort in how you approach this dilemma. Let us know how it goes. I'm wishing you an abundance of luck. I'm asking for covering from the ancestors. And I want to thank you for being honest and vulnerable in your dilemma. So, next dilemma. Ooh. This is called Dilemma Update, an additional dilemma. Good morning, Toya. I'm writing to thank you for your advice. Only previous dilemma sent and answered in the At 36 career and family episode, which was also one of my faves. I have an update below and a follow-up dilemma. I received the promotion and when attempting to negotiate, I got stumped. When I got hit with the "we don't negotiate" sentence, I forgot the lessons you taught both in the masterclass and podcast, and instead of facing this myself using my leverage, I relied too much on my line manager to advocate for me without properly using my leverage on them to get the best deal. I have learned my lesson. Since then, I have made it a point to strengthen my leverage and invested in myself through courses and further education to become a subject matter expert. I am now in a position where I have positioned myself as the go-to person on a specific topic, which is where my dilemma comes in. Here's my dilemma. So before I go on to your dilemma, can I just say that I really respect your honesty. Sometimes what we need to appreciate is that sometimes our greatest mistakes in our career are actually serving as learning lessons. So the mistake of not knowing your leverage and ignoring the masterclass and the things I teach in the podcast, but just being able to admit that, to me, is growth. And that tells me you're never going to be in that situation again. The L is for learning lesson. So let's go on to your dilemma. This subject matter is new and emerging, and the business are scrambling to try and develop an offer in this space. They appointed an unqualified white man to lead this offering, and after 3 months, he has nothing to show for it and has been leaning very heavily on me to deliver. He announced he is leaving, and there is now an opening to deliver this business critical project or team. I am being pitched as someone who would take it on, but here is my problem. The previous person was 3 grades above me and earning 2 times my salary, so I feel some kind of way to take it on. It is very much profiting off the labour of black women. Everyone is Everyone thinks it's a great opportunity, but I know it's going to be so consuming of my time and energy for not very much reward. They won't guarantee a promotion at the end. I am currently looking out in the market, and mostly I could move organisation or team, deliver work in my field, earn more, and not have the stress of putting together a whole proposition from scratch, all with the promise of you may get promoted at the end of it. Really, I would like your thoughts on if I'm missing something here. I know I have leverage and could use it to try and negotiate a pay rise or early promotion to compensate me for the value I bring, but I'm worried that I will be wasting my time trying to build something when I could be using this time to build my skills as an SME, so subject matter expert. Note, as a leader in this space, I would have the opportunity eventually to lead projects and get this experience. What I want is to develop specific experience in my niche with an accompanying pay rise, and I'm not sure this place can give that to me. Thanks again for your work. Keep shining. You've answered your own dilemma, babe. You know what? Sometimes when we write things down, it's an opportunity for us to kind of just like offload, but the answer is in what we're writing. You've answered it yourself. You've learned from not negotiating your salary, but one of the things you've learned is your leverage and how impactful and how strong your leverage is. So when you say you didn't take the lessons from the podcast, I think you have, but in a different way, in that you understand the value that you add. You're also you're also hypersensitive to the labouring of black women, in that you're not willing to compromise yourself for we may promote you at the end. I think you've answered your own dilemma in that I can't tell you whether this is the right opportunity for you, but what I can tell you based on what I have read is that you know that this isn't, because you know that the reward is not worth it for you. You've basically told me what your plan is. You said, what I want is to develop specific experience in my niche with an accompanying pay rise, and I'm not sure this place will give it to me. No, you are sure. You know they're not going to. You know they're not going to because they don't guarantee that you'll be promoted at the end of it if you take on that role. So you know that already. Do what your heart is telling you to do, because you're telling me here. If this role doesn't give you what you need, then don't. You've got a plan here. Stick to your plan. Believe in yourself. The fact that you are the go-to person is your leverage. So you've got options. You have the option to take on this role, and the leverage is that you can turn around and say, nope, I'm not accepting that you may promote me. I want to know, I want it specifically contractualized that there will be a promotion at the end. In fact, if your leverage is tight enough and they value enough, they should give you the promotion now. You should say, I want this, and this is the support I need to be able to deliver this role effectively. You've got options. You have another option where you continue to develop your skills to become an SME, and then you move to pastures new and be able to get the accompanying pay rise, as you've put it. You've answered your own dilemma. But what I think you're doing is sense checking whether you're on the right path. And you are. You are because you're putting yourself first. You're on the right path because you are a subject matter expert, and there lies the leverage. You are because you understand the essence of your labour, and you're not willing to be laboured by people who continuously think it's okay to labour black women for their own benefit without little or no reward. So hopefully that helps you. As they say, those who have ears, let them hear. I hope you receive what I'm saying to you, and I'd love to hear the follow-up to this. I would love to hear what you end up doing. Let us know on the Toya Talks podcast. And we have another dilemma. This dilemma is called a big thank you. Good morning, Toya. I hope you are well. I felt that I had to send this email to pay my gratitude to you. I've been dealing with a situation that has seriously affected my mental well-being. I have finally sent my grievance, and so much weight has been lifted from my shoulders. I have been able to navigate and deal with this situation due to your Toya Talks platform. I revisited previous episodes that were relevant to my situation, got my notebook and got to work. There were multiple times that I felt defeated and worn out. However, every time I listened to a podcast that was relevant to my situation, it gave me so much hope and the strength that I needed to continue. Toya, I could not have done this without the advice and guidance that you have put out there for us Black women. I want to say a big thank you for helping us, Black women, to navigate these mad workplaces. The work you are doing is literally life-changing. Thank you again. May God bless you abundantly for all that you do. You are literally my guardian angel. Thanks again. That is so sweet. Thank you so much. And she's actually sent me her grievance, so I'm going to have a read of it because it's quite long. But I'm going to have a read of it and I will reply to this fellow Black queen. And I just want to thank you for seeing me, for receiving me. And I'm so happy that, a lot of you re-listen to episodes. It's because sometimes it's kind of what I said at the beginning of the podcast episode. Some of you may be listening to an episode and maybe there's certain things that are not relevant for you. But then when a situation arises, you revisit the podcast and certain episodes and are able to use the tools to be able to navigate through the world of work. And that is all I have ever wanted. For me, I always believe if you give people the practical tools, when situations arise, the question would be, okay, what do I do next? One may be, what would Toya do? But another may be, right, I've got a podcast, I've got a platform that I know that I can go to as a Black queen to get the answers that I need. And the fact that you're able to navigate through your situation by revisiting podcast episodes, getting your notebook out, understanding what you need to do to achieve the outcome that you want is the reason, is my why. So I want to thank you so much for sharing that with me, for providing me with confirmation that what I put out is continuously being used. And I appreciate the understanding that the platform is life-changing. And I know, because I get the DMs, I get the emails, and being able to hear that from my fellow Black queens means so much to me because it means I'm on the right path. So I just want to say thank you so much. And I'm so grateful and happy for you to be able to feel supported navigating a grievance, because a grievance is not a joke, it's a lot. But what is important is that the podcast and the platform has provided you with a covering. So thank you. We have another dilemma. Oh, sorry. I'm reading this off my phone. Ooh. Oh, this is a bit of a long one. Okay, let's go. Navigating my relationship with my mother. Hi, Toya. I hope you're well. I messaged you a few days ago on Instagram about how you navigate your relationship with your mother, and you told me to send you an email if I had a dilemma. I've been struggling to navigate my relationship with my mother. I'm 31 and I still live at home. I'm working on my exit plan, and my mother's behaviour is less than pleasant. To be honest, I find it downright toxic. There have been several situations that have occurred over the past 2 years that have led me to question whether she even likes me, let alone loves me. One day I bought a few can openers for the house and she called them useless. She said I bought useless can openers yet proceeded to use them a few weeks later. Also, I have noticed that she has this habit of talking at me. If she asks me a question, I'm not given the opportunity to answer it. I've resorted to saying, please let me finish in order to be heard. On another occasion, she overstepped my boundaries by coming right in my face when she was trying to show me something on her phone. I told her that I didn't like it. She does it in such an invasive way, particularly when I'm busy. And she told me that she has the right to do that because she gave birth to me. She lacks empathy on an incredibly huge scale, and to cut a very long story short, living with her is posing a threat to my mental and emotional health. I don't feel like myself anymore. I've been in the process of looking for a new job and have confided in her a few months ago. I was hoping that she would be supportive. She said nothing positive, only that if you are in a job where you earn more than £1,000 a month, you have to be good for it. Toya, I've been earning double that amount for a long time. In terms of my exit plan, I'm waiting to hear back from the council on the outcome of my application. Once they get back to me, I'm going to see my local counsellor. Even if it means moving to another borough or out of London, I've got to protect my mental health. This environment is extremely draining, and I regret not prioritising my mental health in my 20s and moving out. Do you have some advice on how I can navigate my relationship with my mother without compromising my mental health and well-being? Any advice you could give would be appreciated. Thank you for your time. So obviously I've got a podcast episode. I did mention it earlier on in this episode about my relationship with my mother, and I also have a masterclass on mother and daughter relationship. I've never been precious or hidden that I don't actually have a relationship with my mother anymore. I left home at the age of 21, and I look back and I think that is just no age to have left home. And I thank God and my ancestors for the covering and protection over my life, because to be honest with you, I was a baby. Everything I'm reading here tells me that you're very hypersensitive and aware that you need an exit plan, hence why you have one. But something that I really want to make clear to you is that it is really difficult navigating toxicity in the mother and daughter relationship. My mum is an undiagnosed narcissist, and I know for a fact that she's a narcissist. It's a fact on so many levels. And when you move away from that toxicity and look at it from the outside, it's actually quite scary, because there's a therapy that you're going to have to go through to detox from certain things in that relationship. Now, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you about the often damaging relationship with a mother who is toxic, because you sharing with her the difficulties at work is a normal thing to do. But you're talking to somebody who is toxic, so they're not going to appreciate that. Her focus is how much money you earn so that you can pay her more money. It's not about your health and well-being. And I think once you understand the motivations of a toxic person in your life, you then begin to mold yourself and act accordingly. I think that navigating a toxic relationship with a mother is not only difficult, but it's mentally quite draining. And what I get from your email is tiredness. You're tired. And somehow, somewhere, you're going to have to find the strength to change your situation, because the only time you're going to be able to navigate your mother effectively is when you're outside of the domain of the home. When you're living with a toxic person, whether you like it or not, it starts to rub off. Albeit you start to doubt yourself, you become resentful, angry. You yourself may even become toxic, because that's exactly what happened to me. I can't sit here and tell you the right way to navigate a difficult relationship with your mother. I can just tell you how I have. My circumstances with my mum is very, very extreme. There are things that one day I will share in a book maybe about my relationship with my mother and how my mum has sought to destroy me as a person. She sought to break me as a person. Just break me down. Just because. You know, people don't talk about the jealousy between with the mother and daughter relationship. They don't talk about that. Sometimes our mothers look at us and they see themselves in us or the things that they wish that they had, and that causes resentment. There is a lot of things about the mother and daughter relationship that I have tried to communicate through my platform, through the podcast episode, and through the masterclass. But honestly, I am going to say to you that when you change your living environment, you'll have better control about how you navigate that relationship. Your mum comes into your personal space and she comes into your face, and the excuse of I gave birth to you is toxic in itself, but she's doing that because you're living in the same vicinity as her, and she believes that she's the captain of that ship. So when you now develop your own ship and you're the captain of your independent ship, you'll see the dynamic of your relationship change, for better or for worse. But the most important thing is your mental health. So I'm always going to encourage you to seek therapy. And I think as black women, we need to be having therapy anyway, just dealing with the violence of the world and the workplace. But the mother and daughter relationship is very, very sensitive, and it's very personal to me too. So I do appreciate you reaching out, and you know, I'm so grateful that you felt safe to share that with me. And I hope that the advice that I've provided helps you and covers you. And you know that whenever you need to tap into the Toy Talks podcast, or you want to ask anything specific, you know that I'm always here. So I'm going to draw the episode to a close. I'm going to do that. I'm going to draw it to a close, and I'm going to thank each and every one of you, as always, for listening. If you've gotten to the end of this podcast, thank you. If you're listening to this podcast, maybe half of it, and you listen to the other half, thank you. And more importantly, I want to thank you for sharing this episode, because I know you're going to share it, because I know that you guys fully support what we do here on the Toya Talks platform. I want to also thank you for your patience and your kindness with me. There is a lot of stuff that I need to put out, and hopefully now that I've moved house, I'll be able to do that. I'm in a new environment, I'm in just new creative space. It just feels so amazing, and I just ask you for your continued patience as I now start to put things out. I'm also going to say to you, if you want to follow me on social media, I have a YouTube channel called At Home with Toya. The link is in the summary notes accompanying this podcast episode. I'm also on Instagram. I'm very active on my personal Instagram, which is Toya_Washington. Obviously, the Toya Talks podcast Instagram page is Toya_Talks. Follow me on TikTok, Toya_Washington, and of course on on Twitter, Toya_W with the hashtag Toya Talks or Toya Talks podcast. So let's leave it here. Let's reconvene next week. And I do have an episode that I was working on that I thought I was going to deliver today, but at some point I am going to deliver, and it's called The Business of Marriage. We need to talk about it. We need to talk about it. For those of us who are married and those of us who are seeking marriage, we need to talk about the business of marriage, because I feel like people don't talk about that. People are talking about the romanticizing romantic. That's great, but there's a business element, and we need to get to understand what that is. So, of course, we're going to deliver that here. If you have any work-related dilemmas or life dilemmas, as you've heard them here, make sure you email hello@toyatalks.com, and I will do my very level best to advise you guys. If you are interested in anything Toya Talks related, maybe you're new to the platform, go ahead on our website, toyatalks.com. If you have anything that you feel that is important, if you want to share my services, because I do public speaking, I do go into organisations and talk about all things to do with navigating work as a black woman, then of course go on the website, have a look at what we do. I am going to be uploading some of the organisations I've been working with or have worked with, but you can book me or make inquiries hello@toyatalks.com. My assistant will always come back to you. We are inundated with emails, so all I would say is give us between 48 to 72 hours to get back in contact with you if you have emailed us. And onwards and upwards. Thank you, my fellow queens, for listening and embracing me and showing me love. Hello to all the queens who are joining newly. Hello to our kings who I know access the Toya Talks podcast and platform. And thank you so much for all your love and support. If you are listening on Spotify, please rate this podcast because it really helps me. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review. I do read all the reviews and I really appreciate them. Or any podcast platform where you're able to rate and review, I would really, really appreciate it. Please keep abreast of everything Toya Talks related on my social media platform. There are going to be a few things that are going to come out, and if you miss it, you miss out. Thank you for listening. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toya Talks podcast.